Is it coming through? Okay. Let's start with prayer, y'all. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the food that you've just given us. Lord, we ask that you'll keep us awake and keep our minds alert as we look at these two very important topics. Help us to understand how we can ourselves be strong in this issue, but that we can help others as medical missionaries. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Probably over the years, the topic that I'd like to share with today, hormones, male hormones, female hormones, is what we deal with significantly. Stress is huge, but hormones is right there. And what I'd like to look at is why are we having issues with hormones and what can we do to address them? A physician asked me just recently, she's internal medicine, and she said, do you think that on male hormones, do you think it's just because the male is getting older that he just has less testosterone? It is true that as a male hits 40, it's on average he's going to start losing about 1% of his testosterone a year. But when I have females coming in, males coming in 26, 27, 28 years old, and they're already having significant hormone issues, that's not the case. I'd like to start with female hormones and then go to male hormones. When we look at female hormones, we're starting to see issues with hormones very young. We made fun of Puerto Rico in the early 90s because boys and girls were starting to get pubic hair at that age, at 6. And the reason for that is what they were feeding the chickens, and they were eating chickens. But we're doing the same thing. I was in Dallas, Texas several years ago, and a lady, I was doing a class, it's a month-long course, and a lady came in one night. She says, I got to tell you what happened yesterday with my nephew, who's a pediatrician. She said he had a mother bring her daughter in who was sick. They thought, 8 years old, she wasn't sick, she was pregnant. And we were dealing with multiple issues. So hormone issues, and as a question last night, any of y'all that were listening to Metro last night, the question was, do you think for little boys that what we're talking about is even affecting little boys? Absolutely. So let's talk females first. The key to breast cancer prevention is to become aware of the signs and symptoms of hormonal imbalance, estrogen dominance in particular. Yes, I believe breast cancer can be affected by stress. I think stress is a major cause of cancer. Yes, low iodine, we know, is a cause of breast cancer. Yes, we know low selenium is a cause of breast cancer. But we do know that estrogen levels too great can cause breast cancer. General symptoms of hormonal imbalance are familiar to women as PMS, or significant challenges with their PMS, menopause symptoms of hot flashes and or night sweats. There are countries in Asia that don't even have a word for menopause. Now, I don't know what it's like in Korea. Do women have menopausal issues, the old women? No problems with menopause? Yes. They don't even have a word in their language for menopause, some Asian countries. They just quit mincing. So foggy thinking, low to no libido, depression, fatigue, irritability, weight gain in the hips or waist. As uncomfortable as these hormone fluctuation symptoms may be, symptoms of estrogen dominance are less familiar but vital to breast cancer prevention. What does hormone imbalance mean? A healthy hormonally balanced body continually manufactures all of the hormones it needs to keep everything functioning. It becomes unbalanced when subject to inadequate supply of nutrients, inordinate stress, and toxic influences. And I definitely find that the nutrient issue is there. I can remember when I was at the clinic outside of D.C., and we'd have girls that were in college, and they would come in and their cycle had just stopped. I think it was due to stress of college. I think it was due to the ramen noodles they were eating in the rooms. The nutrition issues. So we had them juice. And in 30 days, boom, things were working again. Last year, you heard me share with y'all about the young girl in her 20s that she and her husband had been trying to have a baby, could not get pregnant. The physician had tried to help them, and someone sent her to Mary Lou in my class, and it was only a short class, just 5 weeks. But within 7 weeks of juicing, she was pregnant. Nutrition is huge for female hormones. Why does nettle work? Why does oat straw work? I believe it is because it provides nutrients for the female to start producing hormones properly. And we'll talk about some other areas besides just those. Stress, inordinate stress is huge, both for the male and the female, but significantly for the female. And then toxic influences, and we'll talk about that. Balance is the most central aspect in a woman's health. Being just all over the place is not healthy. Estrogen dominance is a term coined by Dr. John Lee. Has anybody ever read any of Dr. Lee's work? Anybody read any of Dr. Lee's work? Dr. Lee did his work back in the, I was reading Lee's work, I guess in around 2000. And so I know I want to say he's doing his work in the 80s. He was in California, but it's called Estrogen Dominance. He wrote a book called What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Menopause to describe a systemic imbalance of hormones brought on by the presence of too much estrogen that is not balanced by adequate levels of progesterone. In short, too much estrogen, too little progesterone. So what Lee did is Lee would use progesterone cream transdermally. They started out in the chest region, putting it on their chest, areas that were red, that could blush easy or turn red. Now we see it in the lower quadrants of the abdominal region, some on the legs. And Lee would use progesterone cream. And the progesterone cream then would help stabilize estrogen. But then there's people like Cynthia Johnston and others that found that that wild yam cream worked actually better than progesterone cream. And the wild yam cream would stabilize the estrogen, stabilize the progesterone. And then when you had stabilized progesterone, you had stabilized estrogen and testosterone. Estrogen dominance is found primarily in women living in industrialized countries who are using a synthetic HRT, hormone replacement treatments. How many of y'all know what Premarin is? What does Premarin stand for? Pregnant mare urine. And so what you're doing is you're taking a pee that has urine from a pregnant horse that has estrogen in it. Are exposed to environmental toxins called xenoestrogens that disrupt hormone balance. And that's a huge issue out there. And we'll talk about that. Here's a list of 10 major sources of xenoestrogens. Commercially raised meat in dairy products such as beef, pork, chicken, milk, butter, cheese, and ice cream. Number one on the list. Now I'm reading from just science here. I'm not reading from, this is what science is showing us. So these xenoestrogens affect the balance of female hormones in countries which are industrialized, or what we call affluent countries. The benefits of being affluent. Commercially raised meat, again, dairy products such as beef, pork, chicken. There's that word chicken again. Milk, butter, cheese, and ice cream. These products are contaminated with bovine growth hormones, and they expose females to significant amounts of xenoestrogens. Number two, anything that contains insecticides or pesticide residues can also have estrogenic effects. I'm looking to see if it's here. No. Okay. So where do we find that? What do you think of that may have insecticide or pesticide residue out there today? We're going to talk about it with males, but that is Roundup. Corn that's not organic is sprayed with Roundup. You've heard of Roundup Ready corn. You have soybean that's not organic. It's Roundup Ready soybeans. Even alfalfa is now Roundup Ready, the non-organic. And what they do, non-organic wheat is now sprayed with Roundup. And what they do is right before the wheat is ready to harvest, they spray Roundup on it, and that matures it all at once. How many of y'all have ever listened to Bob Gregory? Anybody? Bob Gregory? Bob is excellent. Bob is he's one of the 10 most experts in the world on raising roses. And he took that expertise, instead of making huge money helping people raise roses, he now takes that and helps people grow biologically grown gardens or high nutrient food out of gardens. And if you ever listen to Bob will talk about this issue where it's Roundup. Now, how many of y'all have grown a garden? Okay, so would you go and let's say your wife says, go pick me some kale. And you say, sure, no problem. You grab the can of Roundup and go, and you go and you pick the kale and you go take it in. Are you going to go eat it? Well, that's what's happening. In 2001, I went to a neighbor of mine. I didn't know what Roundup Ready was. And I went to my neighbor who had soybeans. And I said, I'd like to buy 5 gallons of soybeans from you. He raised soybeans. He said, I won't sell it to you. I said, why? He says, you're my neighbor. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you ever heard of Roundup Ready? No, what's that? I know what Roundup is. So explain what Roundup Ready was. They genetically modified it so that you could spray the soybeans you could spray and that would kill the weeds and stuff. But it didn't kill off the soybeans. He said, I'm not going to sell that to you because I've sprayed it with Roundup. You're my neighbor. I ain't going to hurt you. I said, what do you do with it? He said, I raise it and I sell it for cattle. I said, what do people do with it? I knew. I grew up, dairy farm, then beef cattle. I know what we do with beef cattle. I said, so what do they do with the cows? He said, people eat the cows. So you want to be careful with that type of thing. So like your non-organic corns, your non-organic soybeans, your non-organic wheats. There's still issues with wheat. And hopefully I'll have some good news for y'all regarding wheat next time I come. But if it's non-organic, then they've sprayed it with Roundup, and you're eating that Roundup. And that will affect both male and female hormones. Tap water. Unfortunately, too much of our water source is contaminated with petroleum derivatives the primary source of xenoestrogens. So drinking filtered water whenever possible. So drinking city water will affect male and female hormones because of the xenoestrogens. I was doing some study maybe a month ago on chlorine. And research is showing, you know how we're so worried about drinking chlorinated water, we drink our other water, but we have a shower that's city water. It's said that when you use hot water in a shower, you're breathing in that chlorinated water that is hot and aerated. You're transdermally absorbing that chlorinated water. And this study said that you're actually getting more chlorine from your hot shower each day than you are from drinking the water. Does that affect you? It sure does. Number 4, parabens. Now, I'm going to talk about parabens here for ladies, but it's worse for men, and we'll talk about that. Parabens are in shampoos, lotions, soaps, toothpaste, cosmetics, and other personal care products that contain paraben, which is widely used by cosmetic and pharmaceutical industries as preservatives. Xenoestrogens enter the skin transdermally and go directly to the tissue without passing through the liver for detoxification. So they're 100% absorbed by the body and can be 10 times more potent than consumed orally. And we'll talk about parabens are even worse for men. And then phthalates. That's P-H-T-H-A-L-A-T-E-S. P-H-T-H-A-L-A-T-E-S. It's called phthalates. Soft plastics used as packaging materials are often treated with chemical compounds called phthalates, a xenoestrogen, to increase its flexibility. Plastic-wrapped foods heated in the microwave contain some of the highest xenoestrogen levels. So if you're heating your plastic, in a first of all, you don't want to use a microwave. Microwave kills nutrients, but it even more causes a xenoestrogen effect. Plastic wrap, plastic containers, whatever. So do not heat food or water with plastic in the microwave. Avoid drinking coffee and other hot liquids in styrofoam cups, or hot chocolate, or whatever or hot apple cider. You don't want to use a styrofoam cup. Also, store your food in glass containers whenever possible. Number 6, artificial food additives, including artificial sweeteners and MSG. We were talking about that at dinner today. According to a study published in the journal Chemical Research in Toxicology, 31 substances added to food for the purpose of preservation, coloring, texture, and flavor have potential estrogenic effects. One should avoid canned foods, which are usually lined with a plastic that contains BPA. BPA is a xenoestrogen. I have a friend, he's in management if I told you the name of the company, you would know it. But it's a large it's a large food company. They can a lot of their products. And he told me that canned foods is going away because of this issue. People just aren't buying it because they're concerned about it. And he said, we have to retool. He said, if we don't retool now, we're going to be behind the game, behind. And so you're going to see canned goods, because the public's not buying it, diminishing, according to this fellow from this major canning company, food canning company. Foods that contain soy protein and soy protein isolate. These foods are packaged with condensed and naturally high amounts of plant estrogen, which can also lead to estrogen dominance. Eat organic soybeans, edamame, tofu, or tempeh instead. There's a way that you can, I remember we used to use HRTs, and then we found out about twice cooked soy milk. Who's made soy milk before? Anybody? Well, you can take soy milk, homemade soy milk, and you can put it back in the pot and you can cook it for another 10 to 15 minutes. Be careful not to scald it. It has as much estrogen as one Premarin pill. Now, are the folks here from Romania? The lady here from Romania? She's not here. There's a physician, Dr. Gabriela Tolan, who did that research, and she's Romanian. And just 1 cup of that is as much estrogen as in a Premarin pill. So you have to be careful eating that concentrated soy. Dryer sheets. Anybody use dryer sheets? Dryer sheets are loaded with xenoestrogens to make your clothes feel soft and fresh. These residual xenoestrogens can permeate your skin and go directly into your cells. So avoid dryer sheets. Use a natural liquid fabric softener. And you'll hear me talking about a lot of these. Now, I'm not going to talk about this one for men, but a lot of these affect men, but even more affect the men than the women. Birth control pills and conventional hormone replacement therapy, HRT. HRT contains synthetic hormones that can interrupt our natural hormone balance. There are natural, effective birth control alternatives without the side effects of the pill. Disposable menstrual products. The conventional tampon. The FDA has detected dioxins, a class of chemical contaminants that may increase the risk of cancer, reproductive and developmental problems, heart disease, and diabetes. Avoid tampons and sanitary napkins that contain chlorine. Fragrance. Now, that's a key word, especially for men, more so for men than women. The word fragrance is very, very damaging to a male's hormones. Wax, surfactants, rayon, etc. Use those made of organic cotton or other natural materials instead. It will save you money over the long run, protect one's health, and it's good for the environment as well. So what are the symptoms for estrogen dominance? Breast tenderness, fibrocystic breast, weight gain, especially in the abdominal region, hips and thighs, decreased to no libido, mood swings, PMS, depression, irregular cycles, heavy bleeding, painful periods, thyroid dysfunction mimicking hypothyroidism, and fibroids, and endometriosis. Is your lifestyle putting you at risk for estrogen dominance? Do you want to know what the first one they mentioned? Anybody want to guess? Stress. Anybody not have stress? Is your lifestyle putting you at risk for estrogen dominance? And I'm reading from science here, y'all. Hormones in the environment, which was those that we talked about just a few moments ago. The use of synthetic HRT and birth control pills. Diets high in refined carbohydrates. People say stay away from carbs. Carbs are not healthy. Carbs are healthy for us. Complex carbs. It's the simple carbs that we want to stay from. But we want complex carbs. But these are the simple carbs, the refined carbs. And that's, yes. About what? Yes. That's what Mom told me.
So I was wondering, and then I recently heard that not good, like cane sugar is not. Can you explain a little bit more? And then I've heard words like rapidor and sucanat. I just don't even know anymore. I'm like, did I just?
You've got your white sugar, and then you got your brown sugar. And Mom said that brown sugar was good for you. Brown sugar is nothing more than white sugar with molasses in it. It's the same stuff. It's white sugar with molasses. Y'all know what molasses is? Or molasses. And then you've got, then you have fructose. And then you've got sucanat, turbinado. Then you've got stevia, yes. But Mary Lou, tell them what you use for a sweetener. There you go. I mean, when we used to use white sugar, we used white sugar. And then we started the slow process. But yes, we use the terminato and the sucanut. But what do you use now for a sweetener?
He doesn't give very many treats. Is it on?
Test it now.
Testing. Okay. He doesn't give very many treats, first of all, but I use dates a lot to sweeten. Sometimes a little maple syrup, but any other sugars, it's probably not even hardly once a year. So he's very deprived.
So there's other things you can use. You can put applesauce. You can put bananas. I mean, in your oatmeal. I grew up, you poured a bunch of sugar on there. But what can you put instead? You can put bananas. You can put blueberries. You can put, maple syrup if you wanted to. Agave is definitely better. There is debates on agave. And I don't know enough of biochemistry to answer that fully. But stevia is a great product. Stevia has a 0 glycemic index. And stevia is very healthy. Yes. Honey. The Bible says a little honey is good for us every day. But be careful with honey. It may say that it's local, as it does in my area. It was locally bottled. But it comes from Argentina. But from Argentina, they got it from China. They're running it through Argentina, so it sounds better than China. There's no way that local honey farm that I know where is can produce as much honey that supplies northeast Tennessee and western North Carolina. And the neighbors tell me they see tractor trailers coming in with barrels.
What if it says raw honey?
Okay, good question. That same company was also cutting it with high fructose corn syrup. So our state representative, whose wife is a nutritionist, said, wait a minute, there's a problem with this. So Tennessee made a law. If it says 100% raw honey, it has to be 100%. But it didn't before. Now, you can say it's 100% honey. That's honey. Does that make sense? So here's an example. As you look at essential oils, so let's say it says it's 100% helichrysum. But then you ask them, how much helichrysum's in there? 10%. But the 10% is 100% helichrysum. So what's the other stuff? That's 90% something else. But that helichrysm's 100% helichrysm. See how they play with you? And so unless your state has been specific, they could be doing what they were doing in Tennessee, calling it 100%, because that was 100% honey in there. That was honey. But it also may have some high fructose corn syrup. So you have to be careful. So buy your honey from a person that you know. I will not buy honey and sell it unless I know the apiarist, because there's too much messing with honey.
I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. So I just had a question about distinguishing raw natural honey from just like the ones that are cut with corn syrup. So I remember when I was up in New York, I had bought one honey. It was kind of expensive, but it was solid and kind of pale in color.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw another one that was here in Georgia, but it was like almost like the color of the honey I'm used to seeing. That's probably cut with corn syrup, darker amber color. And they say it's raw, but it's not solid. It runs like the regular one. So how do you know what's real honey and not real honey? Like, is it supposed to be solid?
The best thing is to know the apiarist. And it is true that honey, if it gets solid, it could be because they never heated it, which is a good thing. Raw honey, if you put it will turn to sugar, especially if you put it in the refrigerator. So what you do is you put it in like a double boiler at low heat, not hot, low heat, and just warm it up, and it'll turn back to it will decrystallize. What they do to keep it from crystallizing is they heat it up. And when they heat it up, it kills a lot of the nutrients. Some writers will actually say it kills everything. I don't know if I agree with that. But it doesn't crystallize them because the ladies in the kitchen don't like their honey crystallizing. And so they just heat it up real hot, and then it won't crystallize, but they killed a lot of the nutrients. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. I had bees for 2 years, and I was a member of a beekeeping group in Norway. And the honey, it just looks golden and beautiful, and it flows nicely when it is fresh out of the hive. But if you, like you say, if you let it stay, it will crystallize. But what in Norway, at least they do, you stir the honey, not warm it up, you just stir it, then it is like a thick jelly. And if you have to keep stirring it until it stabilizes, and then it won't crystallize and be a hard lump. So that's the thing you really want. The honey that has been treated that way, before I got acquainted with it, I thought that was some fake honey that was a hard lump, but that is the real thing. Yeah. They have, like you say, they have to treat it in a special way to get it to keep floating after it you have harvested from the bees.
Yes. There's another question here.
So I had a question. It's not about honey, but it was about the usage of chlorine in the water, because my understanding is that to kill all the pathogenic material, you have to use chlorine, and that would, even though, yeah, it's not good, to be exposed to a lot of chlorine, at the same time, isn't it better for, the pathogens to die so we won't get sick from other things? And even though, the trade-off is you do get some chlorine exposure. My understanding is that it shouldn't be dangerous, but...
What you want to do is move to the country and get you a spring that's, you know what a spring is? A spring?
Oh, spring, yes.
Yeah, a spring. And get you a spring that is healthy, and drink that spring water or that well water that's healthy. It's better not to drink the city water. Yeah. Now, because, yes, if you're in a huge metropolitan area, they do have to do something to keep from pathogens. But that's one of the reasons God said, get out of the city, get out of the city, get out of the city.
Praise God, hallelujah. After years and years, we're finally moving to the country.
Yes.
But we have a well, and it has been inactive for some time. And the well person recommends that we bleach the well. We said, how do you go about it? They said, you just pour some chlorine down the well. So is that something that's advisable to do, or is that some other way we can do that? Because the well has been inactive. He says, I forget what he said could have set up in there. What did he say could have set up in there? E. coli.
Right.
Well, no, it wasn't E. coli. It was something else. But anyway, you may know more than I do.
You don't put chlorine. Put 35% of food-grade hydrogen peroxide. Pour that down in there.
I'm sorry, what percent?
35% food-grade hydrogen peroxide.
How much?
A gallon. Yes.
The other question I have is, we talked about the lack of standards with the honey and so many other things. And I've understood for a while now that there's no national standard for organic. And people find all kinds of ways to cheat and get around it and call their stuff organic. So what's the safest practice?
Do what God said. Get out of the city and grow your own organic garden. There's reasons God said get out of the city. See, I shouldn't be coming here. I should be talking to new people every time I come. Not the same people. Y'all should be gone. Right? So to answer that question is, if you grow your own, you do your soil sampling, and you test that soil, you amend it with whatever you need to amend it, whether it's soft rock phosphate or kelp or blackstrap molasses or whatever you're doing it to bring it to what it needs. And then you're using heirloom seeds and you're growing that. How do we get to this after women's hormones? And then that's why God said, there's many reasons God said, get out of the city. And this is one, because look at our food situation today. Let me get back to hormones. So, is your lifestyle putting you at risk for estrogen dominance, stress, xenohormones in the environment, the use of synthetic HRTs or birth control pills, a diet in refined carbohydrates, sugar, and fat, and guess what the last one was? Lack of exercise. Lack of exercise will affect both male and female hormones. So what's the common signs and symptoms of hormone imbalance? Infertility, irregular periods, weight gain or weight loss that's unexpected and not due to intentional change in your diet. And Mary Lou taught me this one. Women would come in with symptoms, or the chief complaint would be depression. And she'd say, check their hormones. And she was right. Many times, women with hormone imbalance have depression. And here you're just drugging the woman for depression and giving her depression meds, and it's just hormone issues. I worked an overdose several years ago, and got there at 4 o'clock in the morning. Daughter found it in the bathroom, and we woke her up, and we took 3 of us to hold her down to the hospital. Hospital says, we ain't dealing with this, shipped her off to UT. She had gone to the hospital complaining of leg pains, and they just gave her narcotics. She got to UT, University of Tennessee at Knoxville. They do some lab. Fortunately, the local hospital didn't keep her. They sent her off to UT, and guess what her problem was? It was just potassium deficiency. That's all it was. But the local doctor said, oh, let's just give you something for them leg pains. And so depression could be just the hormones aren't working right. Lady came in one day, came in on a Sunday, and literally she was 55 years old. Would you say that's young? That's young. And she's a school teacher, and she was walking down the hall, leaning against the wall, mouth open, kind of just staring. That's the way she was walking down the hall. And so we get to care plan that first night, and the physician said, what do you think? I said, she looks classic, psych. And, just a number of things. It was just normal psych issues. And she goes, nope. I said, what is it? She goes, it's her hormones. I said, no way. She goes, you watch. She was with us for 18 days. She left normal. I said, how did you know? She says, my mom looked like that. The physician said that. We treated her hormones. That depression and mental state disappeared. She went home. In 2 months, she was about working in the workforce. She had been committed to an institution for the rest of her life. Her husband said, before we send her off, I want to send her down at this location. It was a lifestyle center, and he was an Adventist pastor, and he says, I just impressed by the Holy Spirit, I need to try this. It's good to listen to the Holy Spirit, isn't it? And he had his wife back. She had her life back. And she looked like a typical psych patient, and all it was, her hormones were messed up. And fortunately, she had this female doctor whose mother had the same situation, and she recognized it. So depression can be a huge issue with hormone imbalance. Anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, low libido. And libido, it's all over the place. I'm looking around the room. I'll be careful. No, I won't. I won't even go there. Some young'uns here. But libido is just, it's an issue. Changes in appetite, digestive issues, hair loss, and hair thinning. It's interesting. A lot of these are the same with the male when testosterone is low. Here are several ways to balance hormones naturally. Number one, now again, I'm reading from these guys that are out there doing cutting-edge integrative medicine. Do y'all know what integrative medicine is? That's more natural. They're trying to integrate natural into it. Number one, a whole food, plant-based diet. Interesting, huh? Nutrients. Adaptogen herbs. Are unique class of healing plants that promote hormone balance and protect the body from a wide variety of diseases, including those caused by excess stress. In addition to boosting immune function and combating stress, research shows that various adaptogen include ashwagandha, rhodiola, and rhodiola is something that we learned when the wall fell. You know what I mean by the wall fell? When USSR fell. Russians were using rhodiola, and rhodiola is a great adaptogen. Holy basil. These herbs can improve thyroid function, but they also can affect, reduce anxiety, depression, reduce brain cell degeneration, stabilize blood sugar and insulin levels, support adrenal gland function, also as other hormone issues. Ashwagandha in particular can be extremely effective in balancing hormones. It also is very good for men in balancing hormones. Testosterone. Holy basil, which is also known as tulsi, helps regulate cortisol levels, thereby working as a natural remedy. Number three, emotional imbalances. You've got to address the emotional imbalances. Number one is New Start. You've got to, the nutrition, they've got to have the adequate nutrition. They've got to have what's E stand for? Exercise. Got to have exercise. W, what's that? Water. S, sunshine. T, temperance. A, air, adequate air. R, rest. And we're now finding, as I've shared with y'all, the glymphatic system in the brain, for the optimum time for an adult to go to bed now is considered at 9 o'clock at night. We used to say sleep deprivation was 6 hours or less. Now they're saying that sleep deprivation is 7 hours or less. And the last one, T. And as I go in the school system, I tell the kids it's what's on every piece of our money. It's what's on police cars now. It's what's on fire trucks now. Actually, I just got a new license tag for my car, and it's even on my license tag. In God we trust. It's so important. But then we look at things that can help with stress, such as trace minerals. Why trace minerals? You got fats, proteins, complex carbohydrates. Those three foundations. To make those guys work, you got to have vitamins, which are the catalysts that then make fats, proteins, and complex carbohydrates work. But the vitamins won't kick on at 8 cylinders unless they have adequate minerals. And why don't we have adequate minerals? We got soil erosion. We're using hybrid seeds versus heirloom seeds. The University of North Carolina says that hybrid seeds only uptake about 40% of the nutrients. Y'all know that. Bob Jorgensen's the one that taught that, found that from the University of North Carolina, and Bob used to come here all the time. Hybrid seeds, you don't want hybrid seeds because they don't uptake enough minerals. They don't uptake cobalt, which cobalt is required for brain function and dealing with stress, anxiety, and depression. So, and then you have refined foods. McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut. The foods are refined, white breads, white. Foods that just have been, just processed. And so if you don't have adequate minerals, vitamins won't kick on to 8 cylinders. And when vitamins, even though you're taking the vitamins, because they need the minerals to make them kick on, then when vitamins aren't at 8 cylinders, then the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates are not on 8 cylinders. But if you give that person trace minerals, boom, the vitamins kick off and they start doing their jobs at 8 cylinders, and the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates kick on and start doing their job at 8 cylinders. Trace minerals are phenomenal in helping with this issue. Emotional imbalances. B complex. You'll hear me talk more about B complex in males. Magnesium, lavender, vetiver. If you want to address stress, anxiety, put 1 drop of vetiver, 1 drop of lavender. Rub it here, breathe it, it'll calm that person right down. Essential oils that you can use, more clary sage helps balance estrogen, fennel, lavender, sandalwood, thyme, Thyme, evening primrose oil. A lot of ladies will use that to help stabilize. Vitamin D almost acts like a hormone inside the body, and it has important implications for keeping inflammation levels low. This is why people who live in dark areas often suffer from seasonal depression and the other health problems unless they supplement with vitamin D. Vitamin D is very good for hormones. Let's look here. Rest. Rest is huge for stabilizing female hormones. So what we use is we'll use the wild yam cream. Guy came in one day and he told Mary Lou, he says, either I'm going to kill her or she's going to kill me. He said, I'm serious. I stand over by the herb cabinet and she's over by the cash register. And that got my attention. So I'm over there watching this man saying he's about to kill his wife. You know, he's talking to my wife. And so she recommended to him the wild yam cream, the nettle tea, the flaxseed, and I don't remember, did you give him also Vitex or was it just the 3, Mary Lou? Okay, so that was the wild yam, the nettle, the flaxseed. But okay, so she just did those 3. So wild yam cream, you just take 1/4 of a teaspoon, rub it in the lower right or left quadrant of the abdominal region, morning, evening, 1/4 of a teaspoon morning, 1/4 of a teaspoon evening. And then you take 1 quart of water, bring it to a boil, and you add 1/4 of a cup of nettle and let it sit overnight. The next morning, strain it. Then the nettle that's left, pour you another quart of water, and it doesn't have to be hot water because you've already fractured the cells. Put you another quart in there and let it sit through the day. It won't be as strong as what you did in the morning, but instead of throwing it away, you got some extra nettle there that you can then, when you get home at night, you can drink that. And you just keep making it each day. And amazing. Nettle is now considered possibly the most nutrition of the herbs. It's very, very powerful to provide those. It's very, very high in calcium, but just all kinds of nutrients that helps the female, be able to produce hormones right. And then flaxseed, 3 tablespoons twice a day, grind and eat within 15 minutes. Rest. Getting their rest is so, so important for stabilizing female hormones. But that's the biggest thing that we do for the female side. Any questions on the female side before we go to males?
Sesame seeds high in calcium.
Are sesame seeds high in calcium? Yes? Okay, Mary Lou says yes. Yeah. About
So it's kind of my understanding. So my understanding is that my understanding is that most of the seeds are controlled by Monsantos. That's what I heard. I don't know much about seeds. But my thing is, how do you know, are there seeds that are not? Because, even if you planted your own things, how do you know that you're getting the right seeds?
There's a seed company that's called Baker Creek. Baker Creek was a young Adventist boy, 11. How old was he? 10, 11 years old? Tremendous company. He now has he bought another company out. What was the other company? I forgot the name of it. But you can trust Baker Creek. Heirloom. Several of y'all buy theirs. And then save your own seeds.
Okay, I have a question about personal summers, AKA hot flashes. Taking sugar out your diet, taking all this stuff out your diet that everybody says you should take out, yet you still have flashes. How do we control that? What do we do with it? Even drinking the waters that people say we should drink. You're stripping everything out, yet they're still there. What do you recommend?
The best thing that we found, there's two things that work very well. That's the wild yam cream, the nettle tea, and the flaxseed. The other thing that I found works very well that helps the ladies is just do a juice fast. Do a 21, 30-day juice fast.
I
And
notice
that-
when I do it for 7 days, I start feeling a little
It's
difference.
phenomenal what juice fasting does to female hormones. But you don't want to juice fast the rest of your life. So if you'll do the wild yam cream, if you're still cycling, you stop and start back on the 7th day, and use the wild yam cream, but drink the nettle tea every day and the flaxseed every day, and that's the best thing we found.
I'm finding even in my younger daughter and even in my 24-year-old and my 30-year-old daughter, I'm finding that even this thing with even kids, 10 and 11, girls, depression,
Yes.
different things that they're talking about, and how do we balance that hormonal thing with some of the things you're
Yes.
pulling out of the diets, but you feel like you're stripping them with everything, but even when you take it out, you're still not really seeing.
We're seeing girls start mincing today, 8, 9 years old. You look at breast development in girls today versus when we were kids. You've got to take away those things that we were talking about, the dairy, the meat. That definitely is going to have the hormones. There are countries in Asia that girls don't start mincing until 18. Now, what was the average age when you were in Korea that girls start mincing? In rural? Okay?
There was a lady downstairs that said that someone had told her to eat more raw, so not even just the juicing, but we had a wonderful meal down there, but more 75% raw, that it made all the difference for her with her hormones and her hot
Yes.
flashes and things.
I agree. Raw, you want to eat a 75, 80% raw diet, and that makes a big difference. But to get back to get back to where you need to be, juice. The wheat today, we're going to talk about that in a minute for men, but it affects females also. It throws the estrogen levels off, the new wheat. Not just the Roundup ready part, or the Roundup that's doing it, but also the super hybridized wheat is also doing it. And so you want to do two things. You want to identify what can cause the hormones to go like they are, such as the plastics and all that stuff that we talked about, the perfumes and the fragrances and the can liner, and even for men, this what will mess up a man. Testosterone is the nonstick skillets that can mess up a man's testosterone, and so get you an iron. Y'all know what an iron skillet is? An iron skillet. Okay, and cook on iron skillets and get away from. So you want to identify all those items that we talked about that can mess up the hormones, and you say, well, that's just a frustration. That's just or move to a country that doesn't have them. It's a lot of stuff. It's the affluent country that we have. And now if you were in rural wherever, they're not having that problem.
So I was just wondering about the seeds, the heirloom seeds and the pesticides, because, and this is just from my understanding of how this works, my understanding is that because there are food shortages and because, we're having a problem with pests and the organic food is not resistant to, the weather patterns and things like that, they're developing these seeds. So they're more robust and so they can feed more people. So, is it necessarily a bad thing? Because for some people they can't afford organic or they don't have the time to, make these gardens. But this is the way they survive, although it's not as, healthy as organic, it's still helping them to live because they can't, afford to do anything else. So then is that necessarily a bad thing?
It is. Big Agri would say absolutely. It's kind of like medications. You kind of weigh, well, the good outweighs the bad. But the bad is really bad with the seeds because, yes, we can feed more people. We can get more bushels per acreage. But look at the health problems we're now having with this new wheat. We're having thyroid problems. We're having significant digestive issues. We're having hormone issues. We're having just a number of health problems that we didn't have before. Yes, so let's produce more food that's healthy instead of just using the food that you can get more bushels per acre with and less pests and that kind of thing.
I'm sorry, but from everything that I see on different documentaries and so forth, there is no food shortage. We pay farmers not to grow. We pay them to destroy food. We get rid of food because some of it isn't aesthetically pleasing. Perfectly good food, fruit and vegetables, but it doesn't look marketable, so we get rid of it. There is no food shortage. It's all about greed and control. That's my understanding anyway.
The other thing, if you want to be more effective, is in our third president and our fourth president. Who was our third and fourth president in the United States? Thomas Jefferson and his best friend, James Madison, who was his Secretary of State, and then he became the fourth president. Both of those men identified that growing animals for food was much less efficient than just growing the food. And if you'll look at the documentaries and the facts of how much water is used and how much, grain is used, we're much more efficient just to go out in those fields and grow the food than grow the meat.
I just wanted to find out, what do you do for leg cramps?
Leg cramps. 75% of muscle cramps, muscle pain, is due to magnesium deficiency. So the first thing I look at, just by rank order, is magnesium, whether it's by mouth or transdermally rubbing it on. But if I can go by just taking the magnesium, say 400 milligrams in the morning, 400 milligrams at night, unless it gives a bowel problem and you go to bowel tolerance, because when you use it transdermally, you're not getting all the benefits as you do when you take it internally. It's going to help the heart. It's going to help all which the heart is a muscle, but it's going to help all the organs. It's going to help with making the blood vessels more dilated. It's going to help with stress. Huge on helping with stress. And why do we have a magnesium deficiency? It's because stress raises adrenaline, and when the adrenaline goes up, the body has a fire extinguisher that dumps an agent called magnesium to protect the cells from the harmful effects of the adrenaline. So those of us that are in fight or flight all day long, and even as we sleep, then we're dumping magnesium all day long. And so we need that extra magnesium. That's why we're seeing those leg cramps, is because of lack of magnesium. That's the main cause. If you have a bowel tolerance issue, get some magnesium oil, and it works best if it has a little aloe with it. Just plain magnesium oil can sting like centipedes on you. But if you get a magnesium oil with aloe vera, it doesn't sting. Roll it on like a little roller ball, and it's tremendous. Number 2 is dehydration. Dehydration is the second. Number 3 is potassium. Number 4 is iron. And that's the 4 I would attack.
Right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, while you were talking, I was thinking, I sat here and sort of diagnosed myself. At one point, we'd been told that wheat was so good and healthy for you. And then I started, my fingers and started getting stiff. And my son said to me one time, he said, "Mom, I think you probably don't need to eat the wheat." I said, "But wheat is good for you." But I think it was because maybe it was GMO or something, because when I eat other grains like spelt or something else, I don't have a problem. So I think it was specifically the fact that wheat is no longer good for you.
In this country and Canada.
If it's not made right. And I wanted to share that I did read an article a while back about menopausal symptoms, and it said that if you drank 16 ounces of soy milk a day, it has the isoflavorins in it that is supposed to take care of that. And another thing I wanted to share was, what's it about? Vitamin D3. I was wondering why I was falling so much at one point, and I said, boy, am I that old? I'm supposed to be falling all over everywhere. And I said a prayer, and I said, Lord, please help me to understand, why am I falling? Because I'd go into the den, and I'd fall, and I fell at work, and fractured my rib. This was a while back. But I was listening to a program, I think it may have been on 3ABN, and it was saying that if you have a deficiency in vitamin D3, your balance is off. So when I found out that I was deficient, I began taking that, and it was just fine. And this was the question I wanted to ask. that was just comments on other things, but I read an article about, I went to Walmart and I saw these baby things, how you have these gallons of water for, this fluorinated water for babies, and how I know when I worked at the children's home, I would take the children to the dentist and they would give them these fluoride treatments. Do you think that fluorine is something that kind of stays in your body and hangs in there as a contaminant or something, so that when you get older, it acts up and messes up your hormones or something? Because it actually is poisonous. And this commentator said that what is actually happening is they are preparing these children for the dentist and making sure that they have clients to see and to fix teeth, because it causes rotting and just messes up everything. And that's what they do. They sell all of this fluorinated water just for newborn babies, but then they don't have it for adults. You have distilled, you have purified. And I was sitting there thinking, as you were talking about the different things that go wrong in the male and females with their hormones, and I was wondering if you think that's something that would just stay in your body unless you have something to rid your body of it.
I can't say how long fluoride stays in the body, but they're even telling mothers in their first and second trimesters not to brush your teeth with fluorinated toothpaste now. The reason is remember me sharing with y'all a year or two ago about iodine in the IQ of the babies? Well, what they're now finding is when the mother uses toothpaste in especially the first 2 trimesters, that has fluoride, it inhibits iodine absorbing in her body, and it affects the IQ or brain function of the children. We know that if the mother will not use fluoride, chlorine, and bromide, that she has better absorption of iodine. If she takes 12.5 milligrams of iodine, it can raise the child's IQ to 10 to 15 points above the mother's IQ, especially if taken in the first 2 trimesters. And then if the mother continues on through nursing until the child is 2, and once the child can chew, then they take 3.125, the child chews it, it increases the child's IQ. So when you're giving infants fluorinated water, it's now inhibiting the iodine from entering that baby properly, and that baby's more prone to lower IQ.
At one point, that when mothers who are pregnant take iodine, that they, within the first trimester, I think it is, that the child can become a genius. And I'm not sure how much iodine they were supposed to take, but if they took it, it was supposed to really...
Especially the first 2 trimesters, and then continue on. Mm-hmm. And then continue on until the child is, by nursing, until the child is 3. But yes, it can make the children genius.
How much were they supposed to take?
12.5 milligrams.
12.5?
Well, it's 12.5 milligrams until the child's born, and then when the child's born and the mother starts nursing, it's 50 milligrams. And she stays at 50 milligrams until the child is 2, and she nurses. and she gives the child, once he can chew, 3.125 milligrams. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to men's hormones. Are hormones a problem with men? Yeah, they are. I'm getting ladies come in who are 27, 26 years old, and their hormones are all crazy. I'm getting men come in, and they're not even 30 years old, and they have a testosterone of less than 200. They ought to be over 700. And why is it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. And what's the symptoms of male testosterone being low? And is it with intent? Well, I know a lady who's has been very active in the feminine movement. And she says, we've thought for years that it was just really cool that we're feminizing males. She's now woke up and says, it's a problem, we're messing men up. Literally, we can feminize males. And is that a problem? We'll look at that real quickly. According to Mayo Clinic, as a man ages into his 30s and 40s, his testosterone level gradually declines, about 1% a year. However, a low testosterone level can be due to an underlying medical issue, and you can do a blood test to diagnose that. What are the symptoms of low testosterone? Strength problems, muscle mass problems. Now this is interesting, y'all. If a male has adequate testosterone, according to Mayo Clinic, Department of Urology, a certain type of cell tends to go towards becoming muscle. But if his testosterone is low, Mayo Clinic finds that it will turn into fat. Isn't that interesting? It's kind of like beekeeping. You can either make a drone or a queen cell, or based on, well, here you can either make a fat cell or a muscle based on the testosterone level. And that's Mayo Clinic. That's just amazing. Libido, huge. ED, erectile dysfunction. It's not just vascular flow. That's huge. Cause of ED, but also if a male has a low testosterone, it can also cause ED. Red blood cell production, bone density, difficulty putting muscle on, abdominal fat, brain fog or reduced concentration or mental focus, mood changes, depression, anxiety, irritability, and men, hair loss. Get that testosterone up. Testosterone, it is a hidden life force inside every man's body that contributes to his masculinity. Now, I'm reading from science here, y'all. Now, listen to this. This is amazing. The premier male hormone associated with strength and virility is testosterone. It is what builds strong bones and big muscles. It's responsible for not only generating sexual drive, but also a man's drive for life. If you have a man that's not driven to live, it could be he just has a low testosterone level. Every man requires testosterone in sufficient quantities in order to live out his manhood to the fullest. Differentiating him from a woman in the terms of his physical, emotional, and cognitive attributes. This is science. It is vital. Male hormone is this essential of maleness and something that every man's body is naturally equipped to produce in adequate amounts, so long as he does three major things. Listen to these three major things. He eats healthy. Whole food, plant-based diet would be the best. Exercises regularly. And number three, gets plenty of rest. Eats healthy, exercises regularly, and gets plenty of rest. Have we heard those three before? Isn't that interesting? The rocks are crying out. Low testosterone can silently reduce a man from vibrancy to apathy. Low testosterone can silently reduce a man from vibrancy to apathy, and from strength to weakness. A man will know he's likely encountered hormone disruption when he starts to experience symptoms of low testosterone. He feels less energetic, has a harder time thinking clearly, and begins to see his once muscular body turn to mush. Even when it seems like a man is doing all the right things, hormone disruptors, and that's what we're going to talk about here, is hormone disruptors, and that's the same thing we talked about in females, can quietly interfere with his biology and cause extensive damage. The thing is, these disruptors are more damaging to men than women. It can be very jarring. It can be a very jarring experience for affected men who may wonder to themselves, what's happening to me? How can I fix this? So there's 2 steps, just as in the female. The first step is to identify the male hormone disruptors in order to avoid them whenever possible. We talked about female hormone disruptors. Now we're talking about male hormone disruptors, cause and effect. The second step is to actively work to overcome their damaging effects as part of a holistic approach to healthy living. What are male hormone disruptors? A hormone disruptor is really any substance or influencing factor that interferes with the functionality of the endocrine system. The endocrine system is a network of glands inside the body that's responsible for producing and balancing hormones. Chemical pollutants represent one common example of endocrine disruptors. Exogenous toxins often possess hormone-like mimicking properties that, when a person is exposed to them, can have an estrogen effect on the body. In other words, these external toxins act like female hormones in a man's body. Hormone disruptors can also block natural male hormones from communicating with one another, greatly limiting their ability to perform necessary duties. These duties include important body functions such as the regulation of metabolism, growth, development, detoxification, cell and tissue function, sexuality, reproduction, and mood. That's a lot. These disruptors. As it turns out, nearly every organ and cell in the body is governed by the endocrine system, which is why hormone disruptors are so destructive. Synthetic estrogen and other chemicals that destroy male hormones. While both men and women require testosterone, in order for the bodies to function correctly, men need much more of it than women do. Women need more estrogen, men need more testosterone. Men's bodies are designed to naturally produce more testosterone than women's bodies, which is why exposure to environmental chemicals that damage its production or expression is particularly harmful for men. That's these disruptors. Industrial compounds such as BPA. Y'all have heard of BPA? It's a xenoestrogen. We talked about xenoestrogen in female hormones. Commonly used in plastic bottles, food can linings, and thermal paper receipts. Thermal paper receipts can be a man's worst nightmare. So guys should not be drinking out of bottles that have BPA. It should be BPA-free water bottles. And a lot of these water bottles are junk plastic that has BPA in it. A xenoestrogen is a chemical that imitates estrogen in the body. These xenoestrogens also lurk inside product packaging, processed food, even tap water. A tasteless, odorless assault on masculinity. The good news is that synthetic estrogen compounds can be avoided if you know where they typically hide. The home hormone disruptors are often found in things like cleaning products, laundry detergents, hand soaps, wall paint, varnishes, and even furniture and carpeting. Taking a closer look at 7 of the most common endocrine disruptors that impact male hormones. Who's heard of dioxins? Okay. These industrial byproducts are classified by the World Health Organization as being persistent environmental pollutants, and then which is called POPs, persistent environmental pollutants, meaning they don't biodegrade very easily, if at all. Dioxins tend to accumulate in food, mainly in the fatty tissue of meat and dairy derived from animals exposed to herbicides, pesticides, and other chemicals. Is there a reason God said don't eat meat in these last days? For both your female hormones and especially the male hormones. Now, why does Satan want to take down testosterone? What? Yes. God set men and women as different responsibilities. The Bible's very clear. If he can change that male role as priest of the family, of that strong protector of the family, he's going to do it. And as you see, that can happen. Food mainly in the fatty tissue of meat and dairy derived from animals, so cheese, ice cream, milk, butter. Dioxins are also present in many laundry detergents, hand soaps, and cleaning products. Now this is one that's interesting, fire retardants. It's pretty much an industry standard for manufacturers to apply flame retardant chemicals to couches, chairs, mattresses, and carpeting to help offset the risk of flammability. And we call that, we're reducing the flame spread. Years ago, when I first started firefighting in 1980, it was very common for us to go to house fires where people burned up on the couch. They fell asleep, smoking, watching TV at night. The couch did not have a fire retardant on it. It burnt, the material burnt rapidly. Even worse was the polyurethane underneath. And the polyurethane has three major problems. It has a very rapid flame spread. It burns at a very high temperature, and it's extremely toxic, and it puts the person out. And they die from the smoke inhalation, or if the burns don't kill them. And because of that, we now see furniture, drapery, children in America, clothing made for bed clothing or pajamas are required to be fire retardant for children. Parabens. Now we talked about parabens in female hormones. It's even more of a problem in male hormones. Ladies, if you want your men to be men, these chemical preservatives are commonly found in shampoos, hand soaps, moisturizers, and other personal care products. They were widely thought to be safe until research emerged in the late 1990s suggesting that parabens, much like BPA, mimic the female hormone estrogen. Now they knew this in the late 1990s, over right at 20 years ago, but they're still putting it in these products. This is why men should avoid, like the plague, any products that contain parabens. So ladies, when you go to the store, you're reading labels to see what's in the food. Read your labels to see if you're putting parabens on your man, because you can deman him. Now here's the tough one. Fragrances. Men, if you see the word fragrance on an ingredient list, put the product back and run. Synthetic scent chemicals can be found in everything from air fresheners and candles, dryer sheets, and fabric softeners. Remember, ladies, there's problems with your hormones by using dryer sheets. That tells us we should not be using dryer sheets. There are thousands of them out there, that being fragrances, many of which are a nightmare for male hormones. The good news, bad news, is that they don't have to label as anything other than fragrance. So all you have to look for is fragrance. If it says fragrance, leave it there, which in some way actually makes them easier to spot and avoid. PFCs. It might be easier to prepare food with them, but non-stick cookware is another common source of hormone disruptors that should be avoided. PFCs and other chemicals in coating materials interfere not only with testosterone, but also estrogen and cortisol. So ladies, you don't want the cookware that's that non-stick cookware. It's going to affect your hormones and your husband's hormones, your girl's hormones, your boy's hormones, your granddaughter's hormones, your grandson's hormones. These chemicals disrupt normal bodily function and potentially interfere with a man's ability to produce. So don't give it as a wedding gift. PCBs. Remember PCBs and mercury? These two compounds, formerly being a now banned chemical, coolant and lubricant, are persistent in the environment and tend to accumulate in bottom-feeding fish, as well as those that are farm-raised. Now, especially the large fish. Why? Remember the exponential effect when fish eat fish and that fish, they keep eating? It's not just doubling, it's exponential. So if you're eating tuna, the big guy, he's got a lot of it in him. And the bottom dwellers, the catfish, the lobster, the shrimp, those guys are deadly. Why did God say, quit eating meat in the last days? Glyphosate, and that's an active ingredient in Monsanto Roundup herbicide. Glyphosate is the world's most widely used crop chemical. It's routinely sprayed on. Now here's what they sprayed on: genetically modified corn, genetically modified soy, genetically modified or non-organic alfalfa, and non-organic crops, as well as conventional wheat just before harvesting. That's what I was sharing with y'all that Bob Gregory's been warning against. Residues from glyphosate, a proven hormone disruptor, often lingers on these same products after harvest, which is why men want to stick with organic food whenever possible. So if you're eating wheat, men, whether it's a loaf of bread or whether it's your pasta, you don't want to eat it unless if it's wheat, you don't want to do it unless it's organic. But let me share something. I'm excited about this. I really am, and I'll share you. I said I'd tell y'all next time. Hopefully I'll have the results shortly. But they're examining some wheat that I've sent off. I went to UT at Knoxville. They hooked me up with a specialist in chromosome for wheat. This guy, his specialty is monitoring chromosomes in wheat. So I sent it to him. Some wheat out of Canada that is supposedly the ancient wheat, like what they have over in Europe, in the EU, because the EU is not having the problem that we are. If it proves, and because I shared with him the medicinal the health problems that we're having, he's doing it for free, this testing. Now I'd like to double test it. I'd like to see what he finds. Then I'd like to get some wheat from Europe and get him to test that and cross compare. But if we find that this wheat out of rural Canada is the same as the wheat in Europe, there's a good chance we can use that wheat. It won't have, see, wheat is not genetically modified. It's super hybridized. It's also sprayed, if it's not organic, with the Roundup. But if this wheat turns out to be like the wheat in Europe, I'm excited because I think I can eat that wheat. Wheat, there's a reason why God said eat bread. It's very nutritious. Is there a microphone?
Liz is not here right now, but she told me about a wheat that she bakes her bread with. That's kind of like that one, but I don't want to say exactly what the name is. I don't remember, but I have a question pertaining to, we know we're not supposed to eat red meat or anything like that. What are your thoughts on the canned fake meats and pot roast and all that kind of stuff?
The meats that are analogs?
Sorry?
The analog meats, like the Worthington,
It's
the
like
Lomelander?
the dinner steaks, prime steaks, your dinner roast, and all of those things that sell in the ABC.
Yes. I'd look at your sodium level. There's a lot of sodium in it. There's a lot of estrogen in it. I think it's a good transitional food maybe, but we don't even teach with it because people quit using it as transitional and they just eat it all the time. And they don't, and so it was made as a transitional product, not an Adventist meat.
But I used to work there, and from reading the labels, they do have animal products.
Really?
Most of them
Wow.
have animal products in them. And what I find with a lot of people that's coming in that is pretty much on it, they pretty much have the same issues as eating regular meat.
Yes. There was a study that I saw several years ago. I think it's when I was taking classes from Cornell. And they were talking about exactly what you're saying, that the harmful effects when people are using those they're called analogs. And unfortunately, a lot of Adventists use a lot of analogs. Mary Lou won't even teach analog, nothing, because people get stuck on it. It's easy, it's expensive, and so we don't even teach it. And it's interesting, you'll find the New Agers that own health food stores, they won't carry it because it's not health food. Yeah. So hopefully, we'll find out about that wheat shortly, and I can share that with you. Residues of glyphosates, a proven hormone disruptor, often linger on these same food products after harvest, which is why men will want to stick with organic food whenever possible, because they don't spray the organic corn, the organic soy, the organic wheat. I need a microphone.
Hi. I keep hearing about soy, oh, it's not good for men and boys because it'll affect their testosterone, but you mentioned earlier that, eating tofu was okay, so I was just wondering about that.
You know,
And I don't know if there's a difference between the organic and the regular, but if all of soy is bad for them, I was
there's
just
two
curious.
schools of thought on that issue, and I'm sure y'all have heard both schools, and I wish, again, I have a PhD in biochemistry, I better answer that. Dr. Agatha felt, the last that I had spoke with her, that eating some soy was not a huge issue. The problem is especially, these concentrated soys, is just eating so much soy. I used to buy a 5-gallon bucket at the Asian restaurant for $9.98. Can you imagine 5 gallons of tofu? 5 gallons of tofu for $9.98. And Mary Lou split it with her girlfriends. And she cooked quite a bit. And then I started learning about we can be getting too much soy. And so we quit doing it. Does she still use it? Week before last, she made tofu ala king. So we cook with a little tofu every once in a while, but not a lot.
The spirit of prophecy recommends that we eat simple foods prepared simply. Is that correct?
That's correct. Analog is not simple foods.
Okay. So but along that line, and this relates to the men's section also, or perhaps a woman as well, when we take the simple foods and we put them through a food processor and do all the things that we do to make, I guess you're saying analog, make our own analog at home, are we running the risk of doing something to it that's going to make it unhealthy for us and might affect our hormone levels?
Mary Lou used to make our own gluten steaks. They were delicious. She makes delicious delicious gluten steaks, but she hasn't made them in years. But they were better than Loma Linda and Worthington. But they're really concentrated. Question back here. Oh.
The last part of my question, could it affect our hormone levels when we do that?
Yes, yes. According to this, yes, it does affect both male and female hormone levels. Yes. Is there a micro? Oh, here. Okay, question here.
A lot of people are struggling with the difference between organic and non-organic foods. If, how do we really know? You go to the store and you see the organic here, and how do we really know that it's organic?
Yes.
But we know that it's safer to use the organic, because when I use the smoothies or I juice, I make sure I use only organic.
Yes.
But how am I so certain that I'm really getting organic?
Get out of the city and grow your own. Have I said that before? Y'all need to get out of the cities and grow your own stuff. Now, let me burst y'all's bubble. And now this is Bob Jorgensen's teaching that I learned this. Bob had a class up in Portland, Oregon, back in 05, 06, probably 06, somewhere in that area, maybe 04. It could have been 04. And it was a 3-day course on organic versus conventional. For 3 days, we analyzed organic versus conventional. In Bob's research, we found that conventional had more nutrition than the organic stuff. Now, what does that mean? That's confusing now, isn't it? So here's what Bob found. And y'all know Bob Jorgensen. He came here a lot. Y'all know Bob. So what Bob found was there is conventional, there's organic, and there's biological grown. And that's what Bob Gregory teaches. See, what happens is the organic food, they just make sure it's not sprayed with stuff. They don't really pay attention to the soil. And you actually can get more nutrition from the commercial fertilizer because these organic farmers aren't putting anything in it. There's a question in the back. And so what you want to do is you want to go biological, where you're testing the soil, making sure that kale will pick up what kale will pick up to grow it, but also what the kale will pick up to grow you. And then not spray it with stuff. And it has a lot more nutrition.
Well, I just wanted to share that I read that the tofu, I was really happy about finding out about tofu. It's so bland, but you can make it taste almost any way that you want if you season it. And I was buying it, it was real inexpensive. And I said, boy, I wonder how many people know about this tofu. It's so cheap. And you can fix it all kinds of ways, but I also read that the body does not digest it well, and that if that's one of the things, if you want is a flat stomach, do not eat tofu. So I had to let that one go, and I gotten this recipe from 3ABN on the gluten steaks, and I was all excited about that because I followed the directions and they turned out well. I said, boy, I'm gonna have all kinds of vegetarian food. And I could have all these people over for dinner and everything. But it was the wheat, and so I'm just basically now at using oats and nuts and mixing it together and seasoning it, because then I know what's in it, no preservatives, and it's easy to digest, and you have your natural protein, and I think that's the only way I know to go right now, unless someone else has a better idea.
Mary Lou used to make a burger that had what, bulgur wheat? Was that right? But if you can get Mary Lou to explain what's in her burger now. Can you? Right. See, we used to use bulgur wheat, but when we found out the problems with bulgur wheat, now what do you put in it? And it tastes, women come and get it from Mary Lou, or she teaches them how to make it. They go home, they trick their husbands and their husbands' friends. And they think it's real meat. So what do you put in it?
I did bake a bulgur wheat that was like a crumble.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make anything like that anymore.
No.
I'm making just burgers, but it's like what she's saying, oats and nuts and seeds, and I put quinoa in it, and flaxseed, and I can crumble that. I crumbled it to make a taco salad the other day for Ashley, and seasoned it with my own taco seasoning, and, you know, just baked it. And so like I would of the other bulgur wheat, but I just used the burger that I would make for a sandwich out of just a simple grains and nuts.
There's a question in the back.
I just wanted to say, I put together a DVD. I think most of Ivanhoe has that DVD. I put together a DVD on GMO, and one of the information that I put in that DVD was the government actually allow farmers that grow organic food, if they had a problem with their crop 3 or 4 months or so before, that following year, they could grow non-organic and still sell it as organic.
That's correct.
So this is this kind of stuff that...
Kellogg also was allowed to call some things organic because they ran short in product, and they still were able to sell it because they needed it for marketing.
Yes.
Organic.
So I'll make some more of the DVDs, and those of you that didn't have it, I can get it out to you. But another thing I wanted to say about wheat. The problem is with wheat in the United States is that wheat only has 18 chromosomes, normal wheat. But the wheat that is in the United States has 32 chromosomes.
42 now.
42? Oh, wow. The last time I heard it was 32. But the thing about it is that the body doesn't know what to do with that. So that's why we're getting all the kind of problems that we're getting with the wheat that we're eating, is because we're eating monster wheat.
So again, what's the best way to know what you're eating? Move to the country and grow your own food. And next time when Roy has me come, I'll be talking to a different group of people. Because you're still supposed to come back and work the cities and keep filling them seats. But you're not supposed to live here.
Okay, so the heart of the matter is move to the country and grow your own food. Here's the big word, but. What if right now you can't move to the country? Or what if you're just starting to grow your own stuff? How or who here can tell us how we can truly identify what's organic or not? That's the question that we're having. Because we really want to know. I mean, we're spending all this money at Sprout, at Whole Foods, at the farmer's market. Who can truly answer the heart of the matter, that question?
First off, if you are truly buying 100% organic, leave the rest with God. There are 4 types of organic. 100% organic, which means that if it says 100% organic, it has to be 100% ingredients must be organic. Then you've got organic. Organic only has to have 70%. 30% of that, or 30% of the rest of that, can be non-organic as long as it has been labeled, what's the word I want to use? No, it's like a crossover between organic and none, but it's acceptable. No, not hybrid, more like acceptable, I guess you might want to say. But the 30% can be acceptable according to organic standards, but it's not organic whatsoever. Okay? So you have 100% organic, then you have organic, and then you also have another one called, let's see, I looked it up, let's see here. It says made with organic. So made with organic you find a lot of times in stores, and what it is, it means you have to have, I think it's 60% organic in there. And the rest can be anything else. You have one more category, which is called, that one. specific organic, which means that you have specific ingredients within that product that is 100% organic. You understand? So you might find bread, it says organic, specific organic. And let's say it might say that the honey might be 100% organic. It does not mean the whole product is organic whatsoever. So if you want to be safe, you want to get 100% organic, and you're good.
And then is exactly what Roy says. Trust God and get out of the city and start doing your own.
I was just going to say, we have the advantage in Georgia that there's a lot of farms.
Yeah.
And you can get to know farmers and go to local farmers and see how they're growing their food. It may take you a little bit longer to get from place to place, but go to local farmers, see how they grow their food, and you can get it direct from the source. And that's the best thing I could recommend. As a matter of fact, we've thought about in the town that we live in, which we are in the country, we drive an hour and a half to be here to see what's going on here. But to get with the local farmers and start a local farming store that people can come and get organic food that you know. You can visit the farm and you can talk to the farmers and see what they're doing. So get to know people, to be a chance to witness to people, to get to know people, and just start supporting local farmers. Sorry.
You know, some of the church members here know that we have a health facility. It's not strong at the moment, but you know, we do. And we've often come together, we have these conversations, and all these questions come all the time. You know, we hear so much of this is in this, this is in this, we can't eat this, we can't eat this, you know. And it can be very overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And especially as we are people who are to teach people. And we have to think about what we are and who we are and whose we are. And as difficult as the world that we live in, and we know that, we also have to think about our God who is the King and the things that he has told us and shown us to do. We do to the best of our ability. And you, as I was talking to a friend outside, you know, you cannot be ignorant. You cannot just stay in that and just think that, okay, well, I'm just gonna just have faith in God, or just pray, or just have faith in God. You still have to learn and you still have to grow. Okay. But faith is a huge part of it. If God said, these are the things that you can eat and these are the things that you cannot eat, then you go from that and you do the best that you can, and you believe, you have faith. Like he told the children of Israel, you know, I will let none of these diseases come upon you. All of these plagues would happen to the Egyptians, but it did not harm God's people, even though they were in the midst of the same thing. So we have to use our spiritual judgment and spiritual eyes and look to the God that we serve as being King to save us, because we're living in a very horrible world, but we cannot live in fear. You cannot live in fear. We have to trust and believe in God and do the best that you can do.
We have people come to our classes, and there's a question right here, Mary Lou. But we have people who come, and they eat terrible. I mean, they eat mountain. And for me to say, you need to eat fruits and vegetables, I mean, these people don't eat fruit at all. And the only vegetable they eat is a potato in the form of French fries or potato chips. And for me to tell those people, now you got to eat only organic? Let me tell you, just eating fruits and vegetables is quantum leap for these people, and they're going to get huge improvement. And trusting in God is so, so important.
I just mentioned about the CSA farming, that they probably could find some that do that to get some good organic produce.
Do y'all know what CSAs are? You're familiar with CSAs? Can you speak to that?
Sorry. As a matter of fact, I'm glad she brought that up, because I was going to introduce this to the Hope Evangelism class that we're doing here. A good friend of ours who lives in McDonough, he's doing a CSA farm, and that's where we got a lot of our vegetables from last year. He grows everything organic. So I was going to, I already talked to him about it, having a day where we can all go visit his farm. And then if you want organic food, you can sign up with him and get CSA produce from him. And he grows pretty much everything.
Can you explain what CSA is?
It means that you pay a price in advance, and then whatever is growing, he gives you that. So you get it at a discounted price, but you don't know exactly what you're going to get.
What's available that week?
Yeah, what's
You'll buy
available
a basket.
at that time when it's growing. So you pay for a certain season, and when this comes up, you get this. If eggplant is producing, you get eggplant that week. If zucchini is producing, you get zucchini that week. So you get whatever it is in season, and it's fresh. Yeah, Napa cabbage.
Yeah, it might have some tomatoes and some cucumbers and,
Exactly.
just whatever's growing that week. Exactly. It's a good program.
I'm as guilty as this as most of us are, but the idea that we live in the city is why we can't grow our own food is often a cop-out. We just don't want to take the time, we don't want to discipline ourselves and make the effort. But I've read about a lot of people that start farms in the city. They find a little piece of abandoned land. Some people have good-sized backyards where they just have barbecues and put up an above-ground pool or whatever. That land could be used to grow produce right here in the city. If they don't have a backyard, they have a front yard. As long as it looks nice and it's not an eyesore, they can grow something in a raised bed garden, and it may not be enough to supply all your food, but it's a start anyway. And even in an apartment, you can have planter boxes and so forth and grow some of your own food. So, thank God we're moving to the country. We can start doing that in the country, but we just have to have the determination that we want to do it and that we can find a way to do it in the city.
And I think that's a great idea, because when you grow a garden, that's some knowledge that you have to learn. And so don't say, well, I'm just now going to grow my food in the city and live here forever. It's still your plan to get out of the city, but it's a way you can start learning how to garden. So when you do, God makes a way you can move to the country, you've already been gardening for a year or two.
I just had a quick question about soy again, because from what I've learned, soy actually produces phytoestrogens, which is supposed to help block some of the excess estrogen from being uptaken. So what are your thoughts on that? Does that actually happen, or is there a misunderstanding? I don't know.
It's a good question, and that was Dr. Agatha's argument, is that in moderation, a small amount of estrogen can be beneficial as a phytoestrogen to actually prevent breast cancer. How much, whatever, but she said in moderation it can be beneficial. Flaxseed is a phytoestrogen, and so there are phyto meaning plant estrogen, and so according to Dr. Agatha's research, she did not totally exclude all phytoestrogens. Yes.
That's real strange to me, because when my twin sister had both her breasts removed, that's the first thing.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
I said, that's strange, because my twin sister, when she had both her breasts removed, the first thing the doctors told her was to run from soy. Because the soy is what causes, too much soy bothers your digestive system and all kind of other different issues. And I find that was the strangest thing to me when I got into the Advent, with this whole movement. It was like, geez, they do a lot of soy, they do a lot of stuff that we should not be putting in our bodies. And the doctor said, get rid of it, especially if you had cancer or, that type of situation. So that's just strange to me, that what I'm hearing now.
You're exactly right, and that's why, you see two huge schools on either side, and I just don't have the knowledge to say which. I know I had a lot of respect for Dr. Agatha. She did tremendous research, and yes, we cut back on our soy utilization. We didn't plumb cut it out based on Dr. Agatha's research, but Mary Lou significantly cut down the amount of soy that we used to use.
I just wanted to add to what my sister was saying about just having how the phytoestrogens in the soy is actually useful in blocking the uptake of the synthetic estrogen. So I was, so basically Barbara O'Neill has like a set of videos on YouTube, and she actually mentioned that, well, for one, soy is not bad. It's what man did to the soy that made it not useful, beneficial to us as it once was. But also just in general, too much of a good thing is good for nothing. So even if you have too much of it, you have to have a balance. Anything that we use, we have to use it in a balanced way, and that's most beneficial to our bodies. And we have to remember, too, that we're all unique individuals, fearfully and wonderfully made. No two people are alike. What might work for one person might not work for me. So, it's really good to be informed and knowledgeable about all these different things. But we also have to pray and ask God to, what exactly is it that I need to do that's most beneficial to my body? Because Ellen G. White, the Spirit of Prophecy, also talks about people who, maybe they're just for them to function optimally, there might be some things that they may have to cut out of their diet that maybe other people might be okay for them. So, it requires that, we actually, in addition to learning what we're learning here, also seek the Lord and ask Him what is best for our individual situations.
Yes, and when we made our decision, something that really bothered me was, if all soy is bad, then why aren't the Asians dropping over dead? Right? And I think it's exactly what you said. It's what are we doing to the soy here in America with the genetically modified, the Roundup and all that stuff, and are we using it in moderation? But if soy was as bad as they think it is, you'd have some major breast cancer problems in Asia that you don't have. And so that's why we decided to use it in small moderation, because of the Asian model.
Yeah, I had a lot of talk about the soya. I had a soya production in my country, St. Lucia, where that's all I did was do soya stuff. I did from grinding the beans, making the milk, doing the tofu. I used seawater to cut the tofu. And I ate and drink up to this day. And I have had no cancer. I have had no problem with soya.
Yes.
So,
Okay, we're running out of time, so let me go back and try to finish male hormones and then open up any questions. We've got to be out of here at 6. Sugar and stress, testosterone killers. There are two major killers when it comes to testosterone: sugar and stress. Too often go hand in hand, as a stressful lifestyle can drive men to binge eat for comfort. Binge eating usually involves junk foods that are high in refined sugars and processed grains, the latter of which essentially turns into sugar as well once they are metabolized. This can send blood sugar levels soaring, resulting in a corresponding plunge in testosterone, not to mention the damage it does to insulin sensitivity. So a summary so far on males: every male requires testosterone in sufficient quantities. So what kind of number are you looking for? For guys that are in their 20s, their 30s, you'd like it over 700. For guys in our age, you'd like it over 500, 600. There are many things in the modern world that can directly interfere with male testosterone production. Very toxic factors, collectively known as hormone disruptors. Hormone disruptors are typically any substance or influencing factor that interfere with the function of the endocrine system. 7 most common endocrine disruptors that impact male hormones: dioxins, fire retardants, parabens, fragrances, PFCs, which is perfluorinated compounds, PBCs, polychlorinated biphenyls, mercury, glyphosate, which glyphosate is your Roundup, Other major killers when it comes to testosterone, again, sugar, stress, alcohol, sleep deprivation, and belly fat. Now, major things when I look at guys that come in with low testosterone, I look at them first and see if they have visceral fat. Visceral fat turns into estradiol. Estradiol lowers testosterone. Actually, any fat on a male, we got to have fat. Let me back up. Any excessive fat on a male increases estrogen, which then lowers testosterone. So we want to be in ideal body weight. So look at your percent body fat. If we're outside ideal body fat, we need to cut it back. Not even just visceral fat, which is belly fat, but any fat. If we're got a little extra fat, let's cut it out and get to that ideal body fat. The next one is alcohol. Alcohol will lower testosterone. The third one, which we see so much, where I live, a lot of guys drink. Do guys drink around here? They drink where I am. Now, used to, men were, we talked about moonshine, but you didn't really admit it too much that you made it. But now it's the new thing in Tennessee. That's tourism in Tennessee now. Moonshine. It's legal because the state gets their money. Moonshine is now legal in the state of Tennessee. That we now have breweries. Actually, next door to the fire department is a brewery that makes moonshine. And it's now legal. Now, used to, down that same path where we have the new fire station, there was 14 stills. They weren't legal on the river there. But now it's legal. All you do is just pay Tennessee your fee, give them the tax money, and they think it's great, and it's the new big thing in Tennessee tourism. It's moonshine. So we see a lot of moonshine, even maybe worse than we did. But alcohol will affect your testosterone. Belly fat, huge. We're getting more and more belly fat as we're watching. Even the stadiums, the seats are having to be enlarged every so many years because rear ends are enlarging. And so they're having to make bigger seats. Visceral fat is many of the guys that come to see me have belly fat. And the other one is sleep deprivation. Guys come in, I say, what time do you go to bed? 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock? Sleep deprivation. And sleep deprivation will wipe out your testosterone. Synthetic hormone replacement therapy can cause adverse side effects. Natural ways to raise body's testosterone levels safely include B-complex vitamin supplement that include folic acid. And you may find that you want to go to a methylfolate. Methylfolate is absorbed today a lot easier with a lot of people. We're seeing more people who have a problem with non-methyl B vitamins, especially B5, B6, and B12, and folic acid. Increased testosterone production. These nutrients are important in protein and fat metabolism for the manufacture of testosterone. 40 to 50 milligrams of zinc in a diet to raise testosterone levels and sperm productivity in the body. Vitamins A, C, and E can play a role in testosterone levels. Omega-3 fatty acids and other nutrients which help to decrease sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG. SHBG is a protein that captures or binds testosterone in the blood, lowering availability of the hormone. So omega-3s. What has omega-3s? Flaxseed. What's another one that's even higher than flaxseed? Chia. Chia seeds, yeah. Get regular strenuous exercise, such as resistance training, cardiac, endurance training, or exercise. Decrease exercise, decreasing excess body fat, helps to decrease estrogen and raise testosterone production in men. Eat foods that increase testosterone production. I'm fortunate. Every day, Monday through Friday, Mary Lou makes me a tomato or two sandwich. I love tomato sandwiches. Now, my bread is flax and millet. Flax and millet. It's not a gluten bread. And she makes me, when the tomatoes are in season, I eat tomato sandwiches for dinner being lunch. So tomatoes are a good source to increase production of testosterone. Red peppers, cruciferous vegetables, alfalfa sprouts, but be careful with the alfalfa because alfalfa can be GMO. Apples and pineapples. All those will increase testosterone. Reduce saturated fat, sugary and processed foods from the diet. These foods reduce testosterone levels in the body, leading to low libido, loss of muscle mass, and other effects. So saturated fats, you know what saturated fats are? Sugary and processed foods. Processed foods, that's your typical fast food alley. And most of our men are eating fast food. Rest. Ensure that one gets adequate rest each night. Recommended at least 7 hours to 8 hours of sleep a night. Learn to manage stress levels in healthy ways to naturally increase testosterone. What you eat has a major impact on testosterone as well as other hormones. Therefore, you must pay attention to your long-term caloric intake and dietary strategy. What they find is when people fast and then binge, fast and binge, man, their testosterone's going, what is going on here? And so don't just binge and then fast. Just eat normal. It's kind of like, you know, if you want to make corporate happy in finance, keep your ship running like this, not like this. I mean, it's hard for them to say what's going to happen. You know, keep that ship running, you know, here steady. It's more predictable. Our diets need to be the same way. Get some sun or take vitamin D supplement. Vitamin D is quickly becoming one of the world's most popular vitamins. Research has shown that it has a variety of health benefits and may also work as a natural testosterone booster. Vitamin D. Despite its importance, nearly half the U.S. population is deficient in vitamin D. Herbs that are used, ashwagandha and sarsaparilla. Another one that's considered probably one of the best to increase testosterone is wheatgrass. Wheatgrass will increase testosterone. How much wheatgrass? 1 to 2 ounces a day. How much sarsaparilla? When guys come in with a low T, they go to their doc, they got a low T, they'll take 2 mLs 3 times a day for 5 days. That is going to, that 1 ounce bottle is going to last 5 days. If they have the funds, they can continue that. Otherwise, they can just go to 2 mLs a day. It's not as quick, but when they keep going back to their doc, they are seeing their testosterone rise. Now, this is interesting. It makes you know that it's working. Y'all ladies pay attention to us. And so these guys are taking the testosterone. Whatever the benefit that the wife is seeing, they're seeing the benefit. The man quits buying it because it's costing money. The wife is sending the husband back to get more of that stuff. I don't get personal and ask what it is. But, so ashwagandha, let me spell that for you. ASHWAGANDHA. ASHWAGANDHA. Ashwagandha that's also one of the most known herbs to help with testosterone. You can take a quart of water, bring it to a boil, turn it off, add 1/4 cup of the ashwagandha. Let it sit overnight and strain it the next morning and drink it the next day. It is true that nettle is good. and that oat straw is good to also help with testosterone. Any other questions on male hormones? Juicing is also good for male hormones. But it's the biggest thing is don't do what takes it down. That's what takes it down so bad. Any other questions on male hormones? Okay, we've got 17 minutes. Yes, sir.
Yes, I heard that peanuts is not good for men. Is that true?
For hormones?
Period. Period. Not to eat it at all.
There's a lot of people concerned with peanuts because peanuts have a propensity for mold.
Yes, I know that. But if you get it without the mold, that's what I'm trying. Is it bad to eat? I love peanuts, that's why I'm asking that question.
That's a very difficult question for me to answer because I eat peanut butter every day. It may have a mold issue. I don't know. But I eat peanut butter every day.
Okay.
Now,
I love peanuts
peanut
too.
butter is not just peanut butter.
Yeah.
There's difference in peanut butter.
Yes.
Okay, can y'all ladies stand up? Okay, they all are different heights. Okay, go and stand in line, tall to short. Yeah, you come over here. Yeah. So as you look at the label ingredients, we're going to go backwards here. But let's say this is left to right. We're going to do who goes right to left. Is it Asians do right to left? Okay, so we're going to do Asian. So we're going to go, she is taller than her. There's a comma. She is taller than her. There's a comma. She's taller than her. There's a comma. But let's say that you two are the same height. There's not a comma, there is an and.
Right.
Okay? So, if you look at your Jif peanut butter, y'all know what Jif peanut butter is?
Yes.
Okay. The first ingredient in Jif peanut butter is roasted peanuts. The second ingredient is sugar, but there's no comma, so what does that mean? They're equal. There's as much sugar as there is peanuts. And so you could legally call it sugar butter. Okay, thank you. So look at your commas and look at your ands. Just look at the ingredients. So when you look at peanut butter, make your own peanut butter out of your Vitamix. Just get some peanuts and stick it in there and make your own peanut butter. Or there are peanut butter that you can get, just it says roasted peanuts, comma, less than 1% salt. So when you say peanut butter is okay, peanut butter is not all equal. So I eat peanut butter every day. Didn't today because I'm not at home.
Right.
But I literally can tell a difference when I eat peanut butter. I literally have more energy when I eat peanut butter.
And there's another question too. I heard that tomatoes, when you eat tomatoes, when you eat the seeds and the skin, that's bad for you. Is that true?
I don't know. My grandmother always peeled but I don't know many people who pull the seeds out.
I've been seeing a lot of the health reformer doctors that are not in our movement, and they're giving that information. So I just wanted to know if you had anything on that.
I don't have any knowledge on that, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we got a question. Let's go back over here, and then we'll come back. Okay.
I have a question about the toothpaste. Do you know any brands that sell it without the fluoride?
Tom's.
Kiss my face. Oh,
Toms.
Tom's.
Toms. You have to look. Yes, be careful. You have to be specific on your Toms. I use, doTERRA makes a real good one that doesn't. Also, Nature's Gate, okay? Just do some shopping around at a Whole Foods and just read the labels.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
I hear that it's easy to make your own toothpaste, either with baking soda or charcoal.
He's heard that you can make your own toothpaste with baking soda. Yes.
Charcoal.
Yeah, charcoal. I mean, when I was a kid, that's what we used was baking soda as toothpaste. Just, dab it down it, make it wet and dab it in there and go to brushing. And it makes your teeth nice and white. Yes.
Yeah, I got a question. I'm not suffering from it, but everywhere I go, I look at all the men, and about 80% of the men are losing their hair or have lost it.
Yes.
What's the main cause of that?
Well, we saw today that testosterone can affect it. Low T or low testosterone will cause a male to lose their hair. We also know that hair loss is a nutrition issue. If a male is not eating adequate nutrition, he will lose his hair faster. Is there genetics? Yes, there are genetics there too. But a lot of it can be just poor nutrition. What are men eating today? Junk food. Yeah. Pardon? Wings and beer. So a male can drink nettle tea. They can drink oat straw. They can get their testosterone up, and that can help prevent hair loss.
So on the other side of that, is it the same in that instance with the low estrogen for women that
Yes,
causes
or
women
the inadequate estrogen level. Yes, women can lose their hair due to hormone balance being off, the estrogen being off, the progesterone. And so we want to balance that progesterone, which then you're going to balance the estrogen and the testosterone. And then there's something, biotin, like 5,000 mcgs, I think it is, of biotin for the women. And there's some other, horsetail and different things that also, and like hair, skin, and nails. And that works very, very well for women's hair. But you want to, both of us got to stabilize our estrogen. Our hormones. Yes, where's the mic? Let's see, who's next? Okay, we got a question here.
What peanut butter do you recommend?
Okay. Here's a question. The question is, what peanut butter do I recommend? I recommend Mary Lou's peanut butter. Mary Lou will just take peanuts and run it through a champion juicer. That's all it is, just peanuts run through a champion juicer. There's other peanut butter out there that's organic, that is just peanuts. But if you got a champion juicer, make your own. You can make your own smoothies, make your own juices. You can don't just do peanut butter, do almond butter. Now, if you make almond butter, you got to wait a day before you run it. So you're going to heat it a little in the oven, wait one day, then run it through the machine, because if you run it through it that day, it clumps up really bad. But if you wait a day, the oils kind of change. It makes beautiful peanut butter. But the ice cream is delicious. Also, who's had walnut butter? Walnut butter is very, very good. And you can make your own walnut butter also. There's a question back here. We got 10 minutes.
But in the meantime, since we don't have the machine to do it, the DeKalb Farmers Market do have the machines with all the different nuts, and they just run it in the machine for you.
That's right.
And it tastes better.
The question over here.
A lot of times what prevents us from doing things is just our imagination. If we put it to use, we can accomplish a whole lot. If you got a juicer, you can make your peanut butter. If you got a blender, you can also make your peanut butter. But people don't have time. You got to stop and look at what you want and ask God to help you, and you can get it done. I use a juicer to make peanut butter. I even make grape juice at home years back. Grow my grapes and I make my own grape juice. We can do a lot of things for ourselves. I have a garden at home, and I don't buy dirt. I make my own dirt. Right? Or I go to where they shred the trees and dump it off. I look for the most rotted part of it, and I grow my own worms. I make my compost tea. I do a lot of things myself. I water with rainwater, because the chlorinated water kills the microbes that break your soil down. We have to go back to basics. Right? We can't depend on everyone, the government, to give us what we want. And I said it before, a government that's big enough to give you all that you want is big enough to take all that you have.
Let me respond to that. Let's say that you're heading to work and you notice that you're sitting on empty, but you're running late. So do you just go on and drive the next 30 minutes? But you're going to be late. It's the same thing. You make time to put gas in the car. You got to make time to also take care of your health. And if y'all have ever been sick, that is very time consuming. Just being sick, not being productive, going to doctor's appointments, and it can also be very costly, of missing work, of insurance costs because of your diagnosis, or paying your premiums, or if you don't have insurance. So it's just, you're kind of going from here to here. And if you follow them little red books, there's more at stake than we really realize.
One thing that I was wondering about is with the increase in school shootings, we talked about this a lot at my school about how, people believe that gun control is a main solution. But with what we were talking about here, do you think there might be an issue of hormone imbalance for a lot of these young men who feel led to do this? And another thing I was wondering about is that some of them do say that, demons told me to do this or something like that. Do you think that there's,
I think there's definitely a nutrition imbalance going on. When we look at behaviors that are psychotic behaviors, many times it's a chemical imbalance. And that can either be fixed by a drug chemical or managed by a drug chemical, or it can be fixed by a phytochemical. And it can be people who they're not eating healthy and their brain doesn't work right. And yes, I believe it can be a nutrition deficiency. Yes. Got 5 minutes. Any other questions?
I have a comment.
Yes.
My comment is pretty simple and straightforward. A lot of us have questions and issues that we would like to raise with you, and it often takes us off of the agenda of what we're supposed to be covering. It sure would be nice if you could come back one time and we could just have a free-for-all open session where we could
next time
just talk about a whole lot of different things.
Done.
I would sure appreciate it.
Sure. Any other questions?
I don't really have a question, but I did want to say that when we were talking about the definition of what is organic and what isn't, and we heard the definition, how the government has its level of what is and what isn't, and it's not the way we see things, because when we think in terms of organic, we're thinking, it's organic, it's totally organic, but their definition is if it's at least, 75%, then we can call that organic. I remember looking at a bottle of non-alcoholic grape juice, and and it just kind of stood out, non-alcoholic. And I said, oh, wow, this is a different flavor. I've never tried this before. So I looked at it and I read it closely, and it had 0.5 alcohol. So the definition for the government was as long as it didn't have any more than 0.5, it could be considered non-alcoholic. And another time I was looking for some grape juice in the store, and it said 100% juice, and clearly you could see it was grape juice. And I said, wow. But then when I read it closely, it was 100% juice, but all of the juices were not grape. It had pear and cherry, and I think maybe one or two other, apple, definitely apple. But so basically, the bottom line is, Psalms 24, the earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof, the world, and they that dwell therein. We are that they. So whatever it takes for us to prepare our hearts and our bodies for God to dwell in us, that is what we're supposed to do. There should be no excuses. I can't do this, I'm working, I'm sick. Nothing is going to stand in that day when we behold him, and he said every eye is going to see him. So it's going to be God in me. If I have not laid my will at his feet and my plans each day and done what I can do to prepare my body and my mind for his indwelling, then we know what will happen in the end.
We've run out of time. Let me make 2 comments here, and we'll pray. God said, get out of the cities, move to the country. And you think, how can I make that happen? How can I buy 15 acres, 20 acres, 11 acres? Just get out of the city and go rent something that's in the country. Just get out of the city. And rent is so much cheaper there. It's there's jobs, or you can do work from home, and a lot of businesses will let you work from home. That's a whole nother topic of its own, but don't get bound up in the cities. The last one is, if you want to go and look at some more information, go to, and I think I've mentioned it here before, go to YouTube, Amazing Discoveries, Walt Cross. There's 6 DVDs on there. Soon to be another, I don't know yet how many. Those are coming out this summer. But it answers a lot of these questions, and go there. Now here's, and I may have mentioned this before, but here's something you can do. I have a friend that does it. He's a physician. He's a gastroenterologist. And his patients come in now, and he says, you have, say, ulcerative colitis. And he says, okay, you can take Imuran. Here's the side effects. You can take Asacol. Here's the side effects. You can take prednisone. Here's the side effects. Or you can do, and he lists New Start. And he tells them how to do New Start, and he says there's no side effects. And he says, then I want you to go to YouTube. Now, this isn't the cool part. He says, go to YouTube, Amazing Discoveries, Walt Cross, and watch those 6 DVDs on how to develop an effective lifestyle plan and all that. This isn't the cool part. Then what he does, the next time they come in, he says, okay, now what'd you do for the N? What did you do for E? What did you do, New Start? Did you follow the nutrition, the exercise, the water? And then he says, did you watch that 6 series that I asked you to watch on YouTube, Amazing Discoveries, Walt Cross? Yes. He goes, now I have another one I want you to watch. It's YouTube, Amazing Discoveries, but there's a different Walt I want you to watch on there. I want you to watch Walter Veith. He says he has health talks, and he also has some really interesting spiritual talks. That's the right arm, opening the door for the gospel to walk in. That's the cool part. And so if you have friends, have them watch the Walt Cross, and then have them watch the Walter Veith. And that's just a tool that can be used to get the gospel into your friends' homes. Roy, would you close with prayer?
How many were thankful that we had Walt Cross today? Amen? How many learned tremendously? And how many learned what our next step should be? What is it? Exactly. And I'll tell you that my wife and I have done this within the last month and a half or so. It was a process. It's a process that I wouldn't mind sharing one day because it's actually a study. I mean, you just can't move in the country and go find a job and you're good. If you run out of money because of issues that arise, what you going to do? If you spend all your money on building a house and something arises, what are you going to do? You have a house in the country now you can't live in. You have a house in the city. What are you going to do? There's an awful, awful lot that we don't even understand. And a lot of prayer goes into it. But one day I hope to share with you guys because it is an absolute amazing story. God was in the works the whole time. And we spent a lot of money we didn't plan on spending. And God still worked through it. And it's an absolutely amazing miracle. Miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle. Amen? So my point is don't look at, well, it's going to be such a hard process to move in the country. Like Walt just said, rent in the country. You can get a small little house 20 miles from here, 30 miles from here in the country, not in like the major aspects of like Alpharetta or Duluth or Swanee, but little, outskirts, maybe past Cumming. And I'm not sure about the east side of Atlanta or the west side of Atlanta, but you can find your little places, and it's a small amount of rent compared to owning. And you can start doing that first. And then while you're there, start looking around the area for a little piece of property that God has already put your name on. And last but not least, start packing up the things you're not using in preparation for moving out in the country. And God knows you have faith in Him, He's going to make that happen. Amen? Shall we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, as we come to you, I want to thank you for a wonderful Sabbath that you've given us. Thank you for the beautiful weather that we've had, and thank you for the wonderful messages that we had, and both the spiritual and the physical that we had for lunch. And I pray, dear Lord, that you will impress upon the minds of all those that are hearing live stream or through the CDs later on or through YouTube later on, even the ones that are here, that if you can know a little sparrow that dies, how much more do you know us? And you know that you want us, you know that we know you want us in the country. Not to run and hide, but to be able to help others, to be able to meet others and share the true gospel of Christ. We know you're coming soon. We see evidence all around us. We see signs of peace, peace. And we know there is no peace, but there's going to be signs of peace. We're seeing that. And I pray, dear Lord, you will help us understand, what you're trying to show us right now. That it's time to leave the cities and move in the country. It's time to have our own gardens because the food we're eating in the city, most of the food is not worth us eating. Most of it's full of pesticides, most of it's full of GMOs, and we're trying to have bodies that are healthy, that we can be able to listen to your Holy Spirit as you guide and direct our thoughts and our actions. Be with us now as we depart. Help us have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. Help us to be able to close the Sabbath in the approved way that you would accept. Be with us now, for we ask in your name. Amen. You are dismissed. We need to vacate very, very quickly so you guys can go outside and talk if you'd like to.
Is she still here?
She's here.
Yes. Yes.
She's right back over there.
Okay, sure.
She has like a dark.
Yes, yes.
Let's do that, guys.
Okay, good. Let's do that. Yes, ma'am.